Greetings one and all, I'm Red Angel and welcome to another episode of I Love It Anyway, a series where I talk about the media I love that is inherently flawed, but I enjoy it despite this fact. A pseudo-review and analysis, if you will. So, let's talk about Digimon Survive. Digimon, how I adore you, but your games are so spaced out in release, it's a surprise when one even comes out, and a baffling one when you decide to go the visual novel route, one with darker themes a la Digimon Tamers, or at least Digimon Tamers flavored with a Digimon Adventure skin. Before we get started, don't hesitate to subscribe to my channel and let me know what you'd like out of a Digimon video game in the comments. You know, I remember being optimistic about this, thinking it'd only be a visual novel and nothing else. Then upon seeing the mobile game-looking combat, a sense of dread grew in my chest. Don't get me wrong, I don't mind turn-based tactical RPGs, but the presentation was what made me initially hesitate. When I tried to get a physical copy for full release, GameStop had given me the runaround, resulting in me getting the digital copy at full price. They informed me that it was unlikely that physical copies would be available, only for me to see them at $20 in full stock at various outlets 3 years later. All personal experiences with me getting my hands on the game aside, it's hard for me to describe Digimon Survive without showing clips that might show spoilers. That said, I'll try to keep it vague and not show the key parts of the story like character death. When you are not engaging with visual novel-esque parts of the game, it's really limited to looking around with a phone camera, scanning for anomalies, and talking to the other kids. Sometimes color-coded choices pop up. These are meant to indicate that you are about to make a karma choice, leading you to get the moral, harmonious, or raffle points. What do those points do? They evolve Agumon down different routes, and they direct you down a different path. The game has 5 endings total, which includes New Game Plus for the true ending and, of course, the bad ending. You know, the terrible one that every single visual novel has. Getting a certain amount of points will unlock each of these endings, but I'll keep the exact amount a secret to give you something to build up to. Word of advice, each of these colors correspond with the symbols on the Digimon TCG card game. Red corresponds to vaccine Digimon, yellow to the virus, and green to data, the main typings in this game. I'll get more into them when I discuss the fighting aspects of the gameplay. Digimon Survive's biggest selling point is that it's not just any Digimon story. It's a tale where not only Leomon can die. Digimon Survive is a narrative where the majority of the cast can die. This includes our doomed Digidestin, making this the first real Digimon horror game. It is certainly not the first time Digimon has dipped its toe into the horror genre, however. The story goes that forces we don't understand have dragged the children into the digital world. Standard Digimon premise. These otherworldly forces of this particular universe wish to fuse both worlds. Digimon Survive is unique in the sense that Digimon are not called Digimon by the main characters, in a similar vein to something like The Walking Dead calling zombies walkers. This was because no media existed in the universe prior to the infection. In Digimon Survive, Digimon aren't called Digimon. They're known as Kemonogami, translating to beast god in Japanese. This is also how the Digimon are treated in Digimon Survive. They're less like monsters assigned to children due to some cataclysmic event, and closer to fae-like creatures. Digimon Survive takes a lot from Digimon Adventure. One can assume it's because it's the most popular and recognizable of the Digimon franchise. There's 7 Digidestined, Agumon is there, and later on, other fan favorites show up in various roles throughout the various story beats. Yet, that's not what's important here, and not why I'm bringing up Digimon Adventure. The Digidestined in Adventure are chosen not only because of their strongest personality traits often reflecting in the Digimon themselves, the powers that be are also a factor in their personal struggles, the strength of their hearts, and their ability to face disastrous situations. In Digimon Survive, it varies on the route you take. They are certainly cataclysmic though, I will tell you that. In Digimon Survive, the characters are older when they interact with Digimon. This does impact how they interact with Digimon significantly. Unlike the majority of past Digimon casts, there's only one preteen in the entire group of the chosen few. With the exception of Takuma, the rest of the teen characters react very differently to their new monster friends. With varying levels of trust, Takuma has the option to help Digimon and the Digidestined understand one another better and raise his affinity with them. This usually involves working through various conflicts they have with the group, the monsters, or themselves. While their Digimon evolving to champion is scripted, after that it relies on how well Takuma has bonded with them. The web weaved by Digimon Survive is a beautiful one indeed. I can't get too deep in the reads about each individual route due to spoiler territory, but I will say that for the most part, the writing in Digimon Survive is on base level good. If you would like me to do an individual analysis on each ending, please let me know in the comments. The strongest writing of the game is often found in the character writing throughout the story. For what it is, being a dark subversion of the Digimon adventure narrative, it works, but at times it reads as basic in terms of visual novel standards. There is a glacial-like pace at the very beginning of your journey. If you're not actively invested in what's going on, it can be on the boring side. There is a lot of fluff in Digimon Survive, and I'd be happy to read through it if it was actually necessary for this epic fable that the writers think they're constructing. Yet, it often isn't. I'm a big reader, but even I know when a story goes on for too long. All because your story has more pages than the other guys doesn't mean it necessarily makes it better. There's some translation issues that I wouldn't mind if they only popped up once in a while, but these pop up quite a bit more than they should. Pronouns being a common error we see throughout the story. There are other translation issues, but this is the one that vexes me on a personal level. Canonically, Digimon don't have a gender. Yes, I know that Anjouwon and Anjumon exist. Essentially, they're what happens when you look at a Barbie or a Ken doll without their clothes. Nothing is actually down there. They made their data packets look like that. So, happy Pride? In Digimon Survive, for some bizarre reason, they default them all to male for the majority of the game. Then when you consider that they even mess up the pronouns of the protagonists, it leads me to believe that it's just a translation issue. I do think it delivers on a solid Digimon story if it was just a visual novel. I'd have my complaints, but it'd be fine for what it is, yet they decided to add the TRPG combat system to pair with our decent Digimon story. Oh right! Did you forget that they decided to add a TRPG combat system? So did I, because it's almost completely unnecessary when you're talking about Digimon Survive as a whole. Almost being the key word. Some of these cutscenes are presented in the format with these mobile game-like graphics. The presentation during these parts is awful. It completely breaks any immersion the visual novel aspect of the game might have given you. I think that the animated cutscenes and the comic page-like action scenes are fine. Then you look at this goofy looking chibi mobile game graphic style, trying to do any dramatic moment with the characters looking like this doesn't work. That's not to mention the combat. Let's talk more about the good stuff first. The variety of Digimon is small, but works considering how little we are actually fighting. So if you're one of those people who want to get all of the Digimon, you won't have to do much. There's only 113 Digimon, 117 if you include the Digimon Survive Extra Monster Gyomon DLC, which was day one content for me. And a good portion of them you get automatically depending on your choices throughout. You can recruit the majority of them too, no matter what route you end up taking. It also helps that there's so many overlaps with the evolutions. Whoops! All Machine Dramon! The recruitment mechanics are very Shin Megami Tensei-esque, and are key parts of building your team of Digimon. The only Digidestined's Digimon that you should have at a high level at all times is Agumon. The other Digidestined's Digimons are secondary and don't need to be at Agumon's level, only close. I'd say about an 8 level gap at most. However, you do need to train other Digimon that aren't part of your main crew, since at various moments, you won't be able to access the other Digidestined. Look up guides onto how to recruit Digimon if you're struggling. There's no shame in it, especially if you're grinding for evolution items. Actually, you know what? Guides are in the description. If you don't need a guide, then don't use it, but it does take a lot of the guesswork out of it. Getting into the battle system itself, Digimon Survive has a sort of multi-tiered system when it comes to weaknesses. Vaccine Digimon are strong against Virus, Virus are strong against Data, Data are strong against Vaccine. Then various Digimon have certain elemental weaknesses that vary. There are a fair number of equipable crystals that can up your elemental defenses or even nullify weaknesses to all elements, though you'll have to wait a bit for that. There are a ton of stat boosting crystals as well, with most of them being grindable in free and shadow battles, if you're willing to do that. Not to mention you can find, obtain, and grind for various food items that will permanently increase the stats of your mons. Digimon are typed as Attacker, Defense, Mobile, or All-Rounder, giving you a basic idea of what their kit is like. Each attack goes in a specific direction, with some going long distances or having a large AoE, with that AoE being right on top of you or about 5 blocks away depending on your Digimon's attacks. Each Digimon is different, with some Megas, for example, having downright broken attacks, and some that are okay. Not amazing, not bad, but, you know, mid. They're mid. Interestingly enough, I'd argue Digimon Survive does its best to make every evolution line viable in some way, which is nice as a longtime player of monster taming RPGs. I couldn't tell you the number of times I used a monster because I liked it, only for it to fall behind other monsters at the end of my journey. In Digimon Survive, as long as you're raising their levels, giving them good equipment and abilities, and raising their stats with various food items and evolving them, you can bring your favorites to the end of the game. In my case, it was good old Metal Seedramon that started off as an adorable Betamon and got to be with me till the end. For others, it could be a Numamon that gets overfed and overlevel until it becomes a game-breaking Piedmon. There's an amount of tedium and grinding in Digimon Survive, to the point where auto-battling free battles might be the best option when you hit certain massive difficulty spots around chapters 7 and 10. Are auto-battles always a bad thing? No. Does it get old faster than Digimon's fixation on bringing back old elements of the first series into modern day? At times? Yes. Now for the bad of said battle system. Let's start with those maps. From beginning to end, Survive really gave the impression to me that its developers didn't care about creating interesting maps for the most part, and it really shows. I will say there are exceptions during key events and boss battles. That said, the maps are so samey that I swear I thought I saw some of the boss battle arenas in free and shadow battles. Backgrounds are reused constantly for free, shadow, and main story event battles. The only real variation comes from the terrains being elevated from time to time, but even then they start looking samey after enough battles, especially when grinding to catch your Digimon up in levels or training up a new recruit for your little Digimon army. If anything, the terrain makes things worse because it adds unnecessary minutes to each of the battles. And yes, I get that's the T in TRPG, but it feels less tactical and more tedious. And no, auto battle plus 3 times speed does not fix this. Second, I don't really feel much like a tactician. Even considering all the elemental and type weaknesses, combat after a couple of chapters boils down to
Number 1, insert your strongest mon into the battle. Number 2, bring those other mons that really need EXP. Number 3, get your mons in distance of the mon you wish to kill. And 4, well, you know, kill that motherfucker.
Do you have to worry about weaknesses? I mean, yeah, I guess. Sure, it comes up in boss battles and the rare free battle, but you can typically demolish most free/shadow battles, heck, even most boss battles, if your mons are high enough level. 1 or 2 might die, but the overpowered monster you have left will clear the board, so don't get too pressed on the casualties of war. It's really why I said that Agumon is the only one you have to care about leveling with the Digidestined, because as long as you level up and evolve mons that you recruit, you should be fine. The only exceptions are the ridiculous levels of the monsters past Chapter 8 in a playthrough going for the true ending and the manga recollection mode. But both of those are in New Game Plus, and I'm talking about the base game. And last, it's a pace killer, and it takes away from the story at times. It amuses me to no end recommend that for a game so focused on choice affecting the narrative, this doesn't affect the dialogue post-battle. I've blazed through boss fights before, and to the Digi-Destined, it was the most difficult fight they had ever been in. And for me, thanks to my literal nuke of a Digimon, it was only Tuesday. On top of this, there are some chapters you're thrown into multiple battles in a row in order to continue the story. Some chapters in the latter half of the story include unnecessary, stretched out arenas, truly testing my patience. The boss battles were, again, just mid. I don't know why some of these arenas are so stretched out, but they're fine? Not amazing, not bad. Just fine. I know the TRPG aspect was secondary to the game's development, but Bandai Namco has the necessary resources and budget to make the game's combat enjoyable. Look at games like Triangle Strategies and indie games with a much smaller budget, like Wargroove, for example. And yes, I understand, but it's a story-driven game. Who cares about the combat? I imagine most players do, and that's what's gonna get them invested in the story. Here's the thing. If you throw multiple fights at a player that are standard in an attempt to keep their expectations for the boss fight, that makes perfect sense. The issue lies with how dull each of these fights are, and even if you don't grind outside of the aforementioned difficulty spikes, they're not interesting fights. The stakes were risen, sure, but our eyes have glazed over after the multitudes of monsters that we've fought that are just low-level mobs compared to our godlike beings. Long story short, secondary or not, a little bit of effort goes a long way, but you can't do it halfway, you have to go all the way. If you're trying your best to tell a good story, wouldn't it make sense to have good combat too? This whole thing is underbaked. That's the best word I can describe this game with. Underbaked. I do love Digimon Survive, but my feelings are obviously complicated to say the least. The twists and turns of the stories would normally be worth the price of admission for me, especially since now you can get it for significantly cheaper, but with the issues I had on my first set of playthroughs, it may take me a long time to get to my second. That said, you might feel different. Maybe you would play all 4 routes. Maybe it would just be one. It's a mixed bag for sure, but it's a mixed bag I've come to appreciate for what it was trying. I'd say give it a shot if you're at all familiar with the franchise, and it's at a decent price. I'm Red Angel, and I'll see you next time.